baby.
Yeah.
Damn.
Welcome to D.E.C, Drummers Education Connection.
The groove. Could we just have a moment of silence and everybody look at Rick Stojak and how cool he looks, please?
Yeah.
Look at that friggin' shirt, man.
Kaiser Soze.
He's
Yeah.
got a usual suspects vibe going on.
He does, man. Hey, peace, brother. Don't shoot me. Hey,
Hey,
everybody,
happy-
welcome to Drummers Education Connection. Today we were originally going to title this show "Weaning Yourself Off of Antidepressants," but we decided no, we're not going to do that. We're going to call it "Dealing with Difficult Band Members," and
Part 2 of 100.
part 2 of 100. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And you know, we have talked about this before. This is actually our second episode on the subject matter. But when you're in a band and you're in a situation where you're dealing with other people, you're doing just that. You're dealing with people.
Yeah.
And for those of you who are watching this show who are people, we can all be a pain. We can all be a pain in the ass. Okay, I openly admit it that I would never work with me. I'm a total pain in the butt. No, but anyway, we want to. You know, I think it's something that a lot of people run into. You know, they have the pie in the sky dream. Everybody wants to be in the big rock band and go out on the road and go on tour, and it's fun. It's great. I love doing what I do. But at the same time, you're dealing with other people, and that can be enormously difficult. And I like to say, think about it this way. If we all decided, hey, the four of us are going to have pizza. We're going to go out to dinner for pizza. There's going to be, you know, a little bit of, well, I think we should go here. No, I think we should go there. You know, getting 4 people to decide on dinner, much less getting 4, 6, 8, 12 people in a bus to go do a show. Oh my God, it's almost impossible. So anyway, we're going to talk about that today, and we're going to talk about overcoming those things. And since my friend Jeremy Steinkohler is trying to wean himself off of antidepressants due to the effects of a singer,
We won't.
I'm gonna
Oh, man.
I'm gonna throw it. I'm gonna throw the hot potato to Jeremy.
Yeah.
Jeremy, good morning, my friend.
I'm gonna
You're up.
You got name and contact info and social security number for, you know.
Right?
Don't play, you know, what is get me out of this band.com anonymous. Oh boy. I have a hot potato now? I don't want to play with
got the hot potato, baby.
I don't want to play with a hot potato.
You
How do
got
I get out of a band with a hot potato?
Yeah. I love that.
Oh man. Well, you know, Bart pointed out, he was saying, oh, you know, everyone has the dream to make it big and go on the road, and how difficult that can be. And, you know, really that trickles down to every level. It applies everywhere, whether it's the casual bar band that plays every other weekend or the band that's going on tour. You know, it's just people. People are people, no matter how many, you know, how much money they make or how many people they play for. If you're playing in a band, you're in a relationship with a group, and you got to deal with some things. And that's why we've talked about this before, how important it is to really make sure when you get into a band that you got your eyes as open as they can be, and you're, you know, not just sussing out, oh, you know, that's a cool band, they got a cool sound, they got cool gigs, I want that. You're getting into a relationship with people, and you got to make sure it's the right fit personality wise for you, that you vibe with them. Because the hang, I used to play with a bass player who said, man, the hang is everything. Yes. And like the music's the music, and we can all play good music, and we can all play in a dozen different bands, but like if the hang isn't happening, it's not worth it, because this is who you're choosing to spend your time with and do the creative process with. So I think that's really important. You know, that said, it's not necessarily easy. You know, let's imagine you're an amateur drummer, you're taking some lessons, you know, you're pretty good enough to play in a local band, and you're trying to do that. So you look up on Craigslist, or your friend of a friend knows some people looking for a drummer, and you get lined up, you talk to somebody on the phone, you ask a bunch of questions, they ask you some questions, then you go for an audition. And, you know, you're thinking like, oh, they're auditioning me, they're the band, they're already established. But you got to remember you're auditioning them too. And they got to make sure that the vibe is good, the communication's good, the music is what you want, and the goals are overlapped enough that, you know, I want to get on this train because it's easy to get in and it's hard to get out, and it's easy to get in. It's often messy to get out.
Yeah.
So make sure as much as you can, and say, hey, just like you're dating someone, you're not going to like get married after one date, right? You want to give it some time, and then you move in together, and then you keep getting into more and more deeper stuff with the band. And if stuff was there in the beginning, it usually doesn't get better. It's been my experience.
Oh yeah.
So the train is not like Polar Express where there's waiters serving cocoa.
I mean, it can be, but some people like marshmallows and some people don't,
The waiters are usually drug dealers with cocaine and vodka.
This is it. Sometimes people want hallucinogenics in their cocoa. Yeah. Oh.
Hey, I'm telling the truth, man. Cliches
you started telling my band story.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So anyway, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's kind of all I got at the moment.
Well, I think you have to have agreements, and I had a thought that maybe an audition shouldn't be just a playing thing. It should be a hang thing when you're first trying to decide who's in the band.
Well, I told you that story on the first episode where we did the difficult band members, where we had Tim Messina from Brian Setzer Orchestra. He came out and did some shows with the band,
right.
And he played. Our saxophone player couldn't make it, so he came out and played sax for us on a few shows, and he actually did a couple of sessions with us as well. And that's his whole thing is the hang. He talked about when and he openly says it. When he got the gig as the MD, he went from a sax player to the MD for the Brian Setzer Orchestra. If you may be a great player, but if you're an a-hole on the road, there's another guy right outside the door that's really cool. He's easy to get along with, and he takes a shower every day. Get on the bus and let's go. And so it is about the hang. It really is. I totally agree. Agree.
Just real quick to underscore that even more. One of the bands I play in just very occasionally is this group from Portland, and I'm in the Bay Area, and it's called Flyover States. These guys are
cool,
fantastic band. It's a trio, kind of folky, rich harmonies, really creative, great songwriting. And twice a year they come down to the Bay Area and do a full band show. And once in a while I'll go up to Portland and play with them, and they add drums and another electric guitar and makes it a fuller band sound. And I just love these guys to death. They're dear friends. I've been working with them for years, teaching at the music camp together. We've had many late night hangs playing dominoes, and we just all love each other to pieces. And every time we get together, it's nothing but nonstop laughs. And the music is so, so good. And it's of all the things I do, it's my favorite group to play in, even though I get to do it 3 times a year because I love the guys so much.
Yeah.
And we just all have so much fun hanging. The hang is so epic that it makes the music that much better.
Right.
So
I like that you guys are playing dominoes. That's,
oh yeah.
It just shows the vibe of the band. It's like we're chill, we're real people. We're not like, some 80s rock video where you have this vision of this crazy backstage party. It's just real chill.
Right. Totally. That's more often, I think, what it is really like with a band. And I think some people think getting in a band is just all about a big giant party. Right.
And, it can be, but I think a lot of times that leads to disaster if it's
completely
that big of a party,
Well, Rick, you said before we went on, you said that you had a couple of things that you wanted to throw out there. I'd love to hear from you and your take on this.
Well, first, I just want to say Happy Valentine's Day to everybody.
Happy Valentine's Day.
And I hope you're all getting some drum practice in. So, yeah. Well, like I said in the last episode, playing in bands has been the best and the worst experience. And so I'm just like, I try to look at each of the difficulties that I've had with band members over the decades. just try to see if there's ways to eliminate that kind of stuff in the future.
Yeah.
You know, and it's all about, to me, communication, right? Right from the start. Like, you know, I could give you guys some stories. I think that's what we were everybody wanted to hear everybody's stories, but everybody was afraid to talk about the stories.
I'm going to give some stories. But the thing is look, we've all played in a million bands, and we're not going to say anybody's name, and it could have been a band that was 25 years ago. Nobody's going to know who it is. So
that's true.
Say what you want to say, man.
That's true. That's true. Well, all right. So I had a band where there was a singer and a guitarist. The guitarist wrote most of the music, and the singer wrote a lot of the lyrics, but they shared writing. And we all got together as a collective, a four-piece band. And the guy who wrote the songs, he was kind of the musical director of it, but it wasn't like I'm the leader of it, And trouble started in the studio when he wanted to sing a song, one song on the album, and the singer was intimidated. He's like, "No, I'm the singer." It's like, "No, dude, I just want to sing one track because it's my vibe." And that was the beginning of the end, right there, for these two guys working together. They just couldn't work together after that. The singer obviously was just so intimidated. He just obviously couldn't handle that this guy was going to sing a track. So that ended up being really, really, really tricky. And then we had a bass player, and this is really interesting. He could play live. He was great on stage.
Yeah.
He was really great on stage. But when he went into the studio, it was all inconsistent.
Red light syndrome, man.
Yeah. It was a simple. I mean, I'm always down to study your instrument so you have it together for your own sake and for your band members' sake. It's tough if you're in a band and you've got a weak member who's not doing their job. I mean,
let's talk about that.
Be kind and learn your instrument.
Well, okay, so what if you're in a band, and even if it's your pals or you're all close enough to enjoy hanging together, and there's one of your band members who just isn't practicing and comes in and they're not prepared as prepared as everybody else, and it's kind of clear that there's one person not up to snuff with the rest. What do you do?
I'm going to say, and I will say this a lot, and I will preference this a lot because I've lived through this. Leadership is everything. And if you don't have somebody that is in the driver's seat, that is the leader, that can set the person down and say in a kind way, you're not doing your job right, or you're not playing this part correctly, or and I will go into the area of, let's say it's a cover tune, original or cover, it doesn't matter, but let's say it's a cover tune. I've seen it where somebody is told, hey, look, this part just doesn't sound right. And they get so indignant and they take it so personal, as if they had written the part. Look, it's either you're playing the part right or you're not playing the part right. There's no reason to take it personal, and you just need to do your part right, and please learn it. And you can say it in a much more diplomatic way than I just did, but it does come down to the leadership. And I've been in a situation where I've had a leader of the band give a task to everybody around them, but they didn't want to do the work. And literally this person showed up at a gig one time and said, all I want to do is play my guitar. It's like, well, it's your band. Everybody else is doing the work. It comes down to leadership. That leader needs to talk to those people or that individual and tell them they're not pulling their job.
Okay. I think that's great. And sometimes it can be a relief when you're playing in a band that has a leader who's making editorial decisions and says, I want it to feel different. I want the drum part different. And you're like, okay, I'm just trying to deliver, what you want. But as we know, especially at an amateur level, there's tons and tons of bands that don't have a dedicated band leader whose project it is. It doesn't
Right.
have a name. It's a group effort. It's a bunch of people, maybe, got together, and you sort of try to split up tasks evenly. But, it's more of a democracy, right? But what happens in that kind of situation? How do you handle it when there's someone who's not doing their job?
I think it goes back to like preparing for all circumstances ahead of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that in the studio, that's when things get really, really dicey, because the band kind of knows how it's working live. Usually bands are playing out a bit before they go into the studio. So in rehearsals, I think it's really important to record those rehearsals. And really, really talk about it. The number one thing that we know, because we're drummers, is drummers who can't play to a click. So I would record that rehearsal and I would get the drummer on the click. And I just think it's something that needs to be talked about amongst everybody, that it's agreed that, well, we need to record it with a click or not. Make that decision. Likely it's going to be needed to be recorded with a click in the studio, at least most sessions I've had.
Jeremy, let me interject this, because Jeremy, I agree with you, Rick, 100%. But Jeremy, I'm hearing you say something a little bit different than session work. You're talking about, the person that's playing the tambourine is not playing the tambourine in time. They're all over the place and they're driving the band off the rails, let's say, or a guitar player.
Right?
Yeah. How do you approach that? I think at an amateur level, I remember. And again, this is just me. I'm kind of, when it comes to being in a band, I've always been, even when I was at the amateur level, my outlook on it was always to put my best foot forward. Now I've learned over the years and I don't want this to sound terrible. Some people not everybody in a band wants the same things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So not everybody has their sights set on the same goal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So for me, I always tried to put my best foot forward with my playing in every aspect and keep my musicianship as high as it possibly could be.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're working with somebody where their musicianship isn't as important to them, maybe what you might want to try is say, hey, look, this is what we're shooting for, what I'm shooting for. Personally, I would like to really nail this song. And I'm kind of not hearing, I'm hearing this one part that you're playing that's incorrect, or maybe they're playing it correct and your time isn't so good. And that comes back to what Rick was saying about the click. Yes, it is the drummer's job to play to the click and hold the band together, but it's every musician's responsibility to have good time and to be able to play with the rest of the band. So say something. Hey, maybe your time's a little off, and maybe you could nail this part a little bit harder. And you can do it in a diplomatic way. You don't have to do it you don't have to be fervent about it. You can be nice about it,
Yeah. Well, you can say also, this is what I'm hearing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm hearing that
I
the
like
guitar
that.
player is rushing,
Yeah.
in the verse part.
Right.
Is anybody else hearing that? Could we try again and listen just for that and see if maybe I'm crazy and I'm just imagining it? Maybe I'm dragging. I
always put it back on myself too.
Right.
I will. I do that because my bass player and I do this all the time. If I'm doing something incorrect, if I'm playing something wrong, I don't want the band members to go, oh, I didn't hear that, and not say anything. I want them to go, Bart, that one little thing you did, that wasn't cool. Don't do that. Because I would rather have them tell me that I'm messing up than to have it go through a PA system and an audience go, what the hell was that? I want to be told that I'm doing something incorrect. I really do. If I'm playing it wrong, tell me. Because I'm a knucklehead. I don't know. Tell me. I want to hear it.
What you guys are talking about is communication and clear-cut goals. When you have a band that has all their goals clearly defined, then it's a lot easier to see who's not carrying the weight. In an amateur situation, I was in a metal band where the bass player was pretty much dropping the ball in every area and not handing out flyers and not showing up on time to practice. And it comes down to communication, like Rick was talking about. the ability or the willingness just to nip it in the butt and say what's going on in a positive light, in a fair way, with all the band members present, understanding that, is this what we want? Are you guys all on board? If so, we all have to do X.
Well said, Chip. That's exactly it. And and it could be at different levels. Maybe we are just a fun band, like the equivalent of a bunch of people playing poker on a Thursday night.
Right.
So how important is that part? Right. Or like, wow, we want to make some money off this, then the goal is obviously a little higher.
Right. Or, you know, money may not have anything to do with it per se, but it could be, you can imagine even at an amateur band that maybe even just going to play a couple of house parties or whatever, that there's some people who are like really into it and want this to be as good as it can be and are very detail oriented. And then there's other people involved like, oh, this is just it's just for fun, man. I'm just doing this because it's instead of playing poker on Thursday nights. Right.
Yeah.
And that's important to have that, this, you know, communication, again, to have that expectations clearly laid out about, and goals, and what you want out of the experience versus what Chip wants versus what Rick wants versus what Bart wants. And that's why I have that conversation to begin with, and also to have it occasionally, periodically over time, you know, because people's feelings can change about it. When I first started this, I thought about it as just kind of a loose thing, fun for Thursday nights. But man, as we've done it and I've been working on my chops and I'm getting better, I kind of want something more out of it now. And maybe can this band evolve into that thing that I want to get more out of, or do I need to find a different vehicle for that?
Right. Exactly. And again, it does come down to, you know, not everybody does want the same thing. I was joking at the beginning of the show, but you know, the pizza thing, you know, we all want to have pizza, but we all want different kinds of people, different flavors of pizza, different pizza location. You know, it's hard to get people on one page for everything, you know. And so I think it does come down. Jim Royal said something. It is about saying we. You also have to look to oneself, and you have to be able to bend a little bit from time to time. But when there's jobs to be done, whether, like Chip said, like you said, Chip, you know, it could be a promotional thing, or it could be, you know, the playing of one's instrument. All the jobs have to be covered, and you got to make sure that everybody does want the same thing.
Yes.
I'm going to go into, I've got two little stories. If I can get to both of them, great. If not, you know, one of the things that I've run into, and I've always tried to do this, like I said a minute ago, if I'm playing a part wrong, I want to know. I'm a firm believer that the mistake is inevitable. It's going to happen. I mean, you can practice all day, nail the parts, and you can go out live and in the studio and you can nail it 100 times. But that one day, that 101st day, you're going to have a bad day at the job and you're not going to nail it. You're going to make a mistake. So that's inevitable. That's going to happen. So you kind of learn to just roll with that. If it's an ongoing thing and the mistake continues, then that's another issue. As a drummer, we've talked about backline kits before. Anybody that's not familiar with backline, it's when you show up to the gig and the drum set is provided for you. And I'm fortunate enough that I get to play a lot of backline kits. We do a lot of fly dates. And as drummers, you're not always going to get your comfy, cozy drum set. You're not going to always have, you know, the right cymbals that you want, or the tom setup, or the bass drum pedal that you like if you're flying to a gig. You know, there's going to be a lot of areas where you have to make the drum set work. And I've been put in that position a million times where I'm not behind my comfy, cozy drum set, and I do it, or I try to do it. I think there's a lot of musicians that will blame the gear. They will, you know, well, I didn't have the right, and the one I hear all the time is the guitar tone. My guitar tone. I couldn't play right because my guitar tone. The tone is not playing the instrument. You are playing the instrument. It may not sound exactly like you want it to. The tone is not what is playing the instrument. You are. Know your parts. Practice your parts. Be ready to adapt and overcome. So you're going to hear that a lot. And to me, if you just own up to a mistake, hey, I didn't play the part right, I screwed up, I'm human, I apologize, I will do my best to get it right tomorrow night. Great. Don't blame your performance on a bad guitar tone. Please don't do that. Please don't do that.
If one of the things I was thinking about when Chip was talking earlier about, you know, one person's not, you know, handing out flyers and everybody else is hustling kind of thing, is just about conflict aversion. And maybe this is like hitting the bullseye, right?
Yeah.
You know, with the stuff that comes up with the band. And a lot of people don't want to deal with a difficult conversation.
Right.
Because what does it bring up? Well,
it's uncomfortable.
It's uncomfortable. It brings up your own vulnerability, right? So here I am talking to somebody about they're not keeping up, but am I keeping up? Am I doing good enough job, right? And most people tend to, you know, think they're the worst. You know, most people, in my experience, not so much on a professional level, but in like in band works, in the amateur bands, everyone thinks they're the one letting everybody else down. That's the thing they're most afraid of on an amateur level. They're not keeping it together. But it's uncomfortable to have those conversations. It brings up a lot of stuff, and you know, it can easily tap into bad experiences you've had in the past with conflicts and trying to address conflicts. You know, even talking about, you know, upbringing stuff.
Yeah.
And but man, I can tell you this, like, when I was younger, I used to be much more conflict averse than I am now. And maybe part of that's just getting to know yourself better and being more comfortable in your skin and growing up.
Yeah.
But, you know, I know plenty of adults my age who are still really conflict averse. And, you know, the problem is that if you don't deal with it, it doesn't get better.
Right.
Exactly.
And it almost always gets worse.
And if you're the person that somebody's saying, hey, look, you're not holding up your share of the bargain, maybe if you have a little bit of humility and look at yourself, and you also look at, you know, I mean, man sharpens man like steel sharpens steel. And I know for myself that I'm not the best drummer on this podcast, but I know I'm going to get better because of the three of you guys. Right. And in a band situation, I would never sit down. I am fortunate that I get to play with some amazing musicians. And if they're telling me, hey man, you know, you're rushing, you're dragging, you missed that fill. If I listen to that and I don't take it to heart personally, oh, I suck. No. Oh, hey, I just got to work on that part. Well, there's man sharpening man like steel sharpens steel. So if it does come back to you, maybe listen. Don't take it personal. They're trying to make it the team good, you know.
Well, like 9 times out of 10, if you have a friend that you're in a band with and he's messing up a little bit, if you care about him, you'll let him know.
Right.
Yeah, that's it.
Exactly.
You know, I think going back to the goals, Chip, that you talked about, I think that a band should have a meeting. And my old band Be Wild had regular meetings, and there were notes taken, there were minutes taken. And I think that there's a series of things that should be discussed. And I wrote down a few that I'd like to share, and I'd like to get some lists, you know, from you guys, like some things that should be talked about as you're going in, whether it's amateur or a professional level. And I know it's a little bit like talking about a prenup while you're still in the romance period. But
the first thing on the list is whether we should make any lists or not.
Right. That's it. Right. So somebody's going to go, dude, why do we have to have a
My ears are ringing that hit so hard.
Apple computer? We have to have a board meeting. Dude, we're a freaking rock band. Why do we need to have meetings?
Right.
It's like, oh, well, there's a red flag right there.
Right. Yeah.
You know, right there. And or maybe you're the only one who wants the meetings and the other three don't want to have meetings and be this way. So I would say there's some things that should be talked about.
Give it to us.
Let's hear it.
One is image. What's the look going to be?
Yep.
You know, do you fit in with the band look? Well, we all wear black. Well, I don't want to wear black. Well, this band wears black, you know, like something like that. Or what about our hair or our grooming or our just style? You know, do you fit right in? I mean, an image is an important thing for many bands, unless it's not, you know, maybe it's agreed that image has nothing to do with it and we don't care what our image is, but that's a potential topic of problems. Another one that I think is that, and this has been a big deal. I think there needs to be a discussion about bringing in a sub when you can't do a gig. I had a band member who suddenly couldn't make a European tour after it was all booked, and the arrangement and the amount of time that went into booking this tour for so many people. And this guy had something come up that he felt was more important, which we didn't think it was that important, but he's like, nope, the tour is off. And we're like, no, the tour is on, dude. The promoter has already invested tons of time and money, and we've taken vacation days from our jobs, and you know, we've been practicing all of this stuff. Flyers are made. We have to bring in a sub. No, you're not bringing in a sub.
Right.
You know, and that
good to have that conversation before the stakes were so high.
Exactly. Exactly. Personally, for me, I think it's great. Any band should have a first call, second call, and third call player.
Yep.
You know, if you're a band leader and you're like, this is my band, I am starting this band, I'm financing this band. It's, you know, it's my songs, it's at my house, you know, all that stuff. Then I think you should have the right to say, you're the first call drummer I'm calling. You can't make it. Okay, I got my second call, and get everybody prepared. Some of my most successful projects were like that, you know, where I didn't know who was going to be showing up, honestly, but there were like 20 people in San Diego who knew all the songs who could play in this one band. You know, it was like a Caribbean calypso band, Island Fever, which, you know, it kind of made everybody sharpen their playing, because they knew, oh shit, I'm just the second call on bass.
Yeah.
First call on
again
bass.
Man sharpens man like steel sharpens steel. Rick.
There you go.
Yeah.
Another thing, I think this could be very controversial. I think there should be a party agreement. Are we going to party on stage? Are we not going to party on stage? How much are we going to party? Do we need to have a band where we're completely sober all the time? All of that. All kinds of things can work for all kinds of bands, in my opinion. But I think that
I've definitely had that. That's a good one, Rick. That's a really important one. I just had a student email me about that. You know, she went for an audition, and the guy was smoking in the rehearsal studio, and she was like, then I smelled the smoke afterwards. My drums smelled the smoke, and I was all pissed off about it. And, you know, I was like, wow, that's a good conversation to have ahead of time. And I used to play in a band with a guy who would get high before the gig, and his playing would suffer, his time would suffer. And it got to the point where I was like, I don't want to keep playing with you if you're going to keep doing that.
Right. You know, and this is a little controversial, but I had a band with two guys who, they fought like cats and dogs until they shared a joint.
Right.
And then all was well. Honestly. You know,
well, look, and we know
I'm not pro. I mean, I'm not like, this is not a pro drug use podcast, but I'm just telling you an experience that I've had.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think all of those things are, you know, again, I mean, it comes down to, again, doesn't matter if it's a pro gig or if it's an amateur or an entry level gig. You know, I think always put your best foot forward. You know, and a lot of times when I think if you're in a situation there, wait, it's your background blur is taking it away. There you go.
Look at that kick drum. There it is.
Oh, nice tone.
Nice
Jeremy.
tone. Yeah. Look at, man, that's awesome.
That thing kicks, Jeremy.
Yeah, it does. Kicks like a mule, baby.
Man.
I think putting your best foot forward, and then okay, so
wait, Bart, I don't want to interrupt you.
Go ahead.
I'd love to know, what agreements do you guys think should be talked about before you get started?
I think the image thing is a very big one.
Yep.
The how much are we going to drink during the gig is a big one.
Yep.
Who's going to take the stage and when, and are we noodling before sound check or not?
That's a
really good one.
Yeah.
When the band is going to come on, there was a thing with Long John Hunter where nobody was allowed on the stage until right before we were called on, and we all came on stage together and we all left the stage together. That was a big deal.
See,
that's total pro, man. That's total pro. Yeah.
That's a really good one, Chip. I played in a band where the guitar player almost before almost every tune, he would step on his pedal and check his sound and play a little noodly riff that was kind of telegraphing the song, and it would drive the bass player crazy because he couldn't stand it. He thought that was super unprofessional. The gigs were not like high stakes gigs, so I didn't really care, but for him, it was a really big deal. And I can imagine certain scenarios where that would be more unprofessional feeling. And that's a good one. Do you noodle in between tunes?
Yeah. The other one would be when you give the drummer a drum solo. What are the other band members doing during the drum solo? Are they playing craps on the side? You know what I mean? Because it reflects. I remember being in the blues band and doing a solo and having the guys do all this different stuff, and it would distract my attention and the audience's attention, and it was a really big resentment for me. It was a big deal.
Yeah.
Right.
I've had that.
Being supportive of their solos. Like I would play drums with them and they'd solo every song. And every time they were soloing, I was there for them. I was there backing them up. And then here came my turn, my one turn for a drum solo the whole night. And everybody else is playing craps. I didn't like that at all.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Beautiful.
I've had that exact same thing happen, Chip. And this is a conversation to have. I had, dude, exactly what you said. Every song that and these members are no longer. This was with Sam's band. These members are no longer in the band, but it used to drive me nuts. There's a drum solo in the middle of a song. This one particular song that we do, and it's not an arena solo. It's literally just I solo in the center of the song, and they're hanging on chords, right? The guitar players and the horn player and everybody gets a solo in this band in every song, and when it came time to the drum solo in the middle of this one tune, the guitar players at the front of the stage doing this thing, playing their chords and putting their arms up in the air. And I'm like, hey, do you guys not hear what's happening behind you? And could you maybe move out of the way so I could get a little bit of the spotlight? I'm playing a solo here. And there was the guitar players at the time were kind of like, when I told them there was a drum solo going on in the song, it was like they didn't know. They were like, you're kidding me. Well, are you, what? I mean, how can you not hear? I mean, it's like a freight train coming at you, how do you not hear it?
Right.
So I think it is a conversation thing. And Chip, I agree with you. You build up those resentments and it's just like, you want to punch somebody, You got
to communicate. You got to communicate.
You have to.
Have all your goals very clearly defined.
Yeah.
And spoken about. You got to talk about it.
Totally.
Exactly. What about like the band name? Who gets to keep the band name? That's always that's been a big one.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if it's a big band, obviously there's your legality involved, right? And contracts and, DBAs and business filings. But if it's just a local group, and it was my idea, and hey, I had this idea to start the Drummers Education Connection, which I didn't, but if I did, and I called my friend Rick and he called Bart and then I called Chip, and who's the boss, of who owns the name if one of us decides to quit, or who gets to say if somebody else gets to come on, right? I mean, it's just like running the deck. It's just like being in a band and all these decisions, and it's all about clear communication. I think that's a really good one. Who has the rights to the band name if people leave?
Right.
Think about what happened with Pink Floyd and all these other famous bands.
Right.
Yeah.
I had an album, a Barnyard Baller album. The fourth album was not a Barnyard Baller album, but it came out under that name.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Different band. Right. Right.
You know,
well,
so,
I mean, you know, and how many people now, when you go see a show, like if you were to go to the county fair and see the Village People, how many of the original Village People are in the band? You know,
right, exactly, yeah. If
yeah.
all the guys that were in the Platters when they
Right.
first started recording, the band would be 300 years old. You
Right.
know?
Same with the Temptations and the Drifters.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
Those
exactly.
screaming bands, yeah, from the 60s.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
it's just a name that's got
Yeah.
a brand, and someone owns it. Someone owns it clearly, right? But it's not usually the band members.
Hey, you know, another one. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, Rick.
Another one that I encountered was how much improvising is there going to be?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I did some rehearsals and we hit record, and man, those songs nailed it. They sounded really good. And then we went to go play them again, and you know, 2 new members who we were working into the band were like, "Oh, we like to play them different every time."
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, "Well, wait, they don't sound as good this time. Listen to this recording, listen to that recording." And they're like, "Well, you got to improvise, man."
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't do that. That's, right. You know, we were looking for our band was established, and it was an agreement that we wanted to sound like the record. So when we delivered a live show, yeah, that's the conversation. And I didn't mean to
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Rick. I just wanted to interject. I really apologize. But
that's
yeah,
cool,
but
that's
that conversation. That's
it.
Maybe the band image. You know, is the band a jam band? You know, is it that?
Yeah.
You know, or certain songs jam bands? Because there's certain songs that I can think of that we do in the Sam Morrison band, like we do Whippin' Post, right, by the Allman Brothers, and we do a bunch of those Southern rock tunes where there's a million guitar players. And dude, I just sit there and hold down the groove and let them go. You know, I mean, just let the horses run. And you got to have that conversation, though. You know,
Bart, that's so right. That's so right. And you led to a really, really good topic about it. That there's a little bit of potential compromise. That well, we could still work together, but 80% of the music needs to sound like the record, and 20% of it go off. You know, maybe that's the compromise. That way, everybody's happy.
That's a really, really huge point, Rick. You know, and that's one of the great solutions to the conflict, right? I mean, and instead of being afraid of dealing with these issues with your band members because you're afraid to bring them up, like, what if there was a compromise that made everybody happy? Oh, then this problem goes away and everything's copacetic potentially. So don't be afraid. You just can't be afraid to jump into it.
That's why it's really important to have that goal very clear and talked about. You know, I was on tour with Long John Hunter, and my band was getting ready to play with him for the first time. And we had 2 CDs to work on for reference. And we hammered on those CDs and worked on them and got all the songs note for note, and everything was just perfect. And we were tight, and everything was just perfect. And we came to the first show with him and played the first show, and we did the CDs note for note, and he was miserable. And he took us into this dressing room, and he sat there and he looked at me and he said, "For all the good those drums did you might as well throw them in the river." And he looked at the horn player and he was like, "I can't take this to Chicago. I don't know what you guys think you're doing there." And then, the next set, Mike pulled me aside in the hallway because I was going to quit. I was so mad. I was so livid. I was like, all this work and preparation, and it's not being appreciated. Right. And what he was doing was dressing down the band and establishing his leadership. Mm-hmm. We got back up on the stage and we were really fired up and just trying to well, you know what I mean? Screw you, man. We're doing our thing. And he turned around and he said, "Yeah," and it was like, that's what he wanted all along, was us to perform outside the CD. He didn't want what was on the CD. He wanted his grooves the certain way that he wanted his grooves live. And we didn't know that.
Yeah, but it seems to me like there's a lot healthier and better and way to get to that.
It was definitely one of those difficult band members.
Yeah. Definitely. I would be hard pressed to want to continue to work with that guy.
So
I would too, Rick. Yeah.
Here's a question for you guys.
Okay.
What has it taken in the past, or would it take in the future, for you to, where a band member or a band leader crosses the line where you reach a point where you say, "I can't hang with that. I'm out"? either that person leaves or I leave, or if it's the band leader, I quit.
I got it. I can answer that right away. I got that right away. I was in a group for a while where a bit of a story. We had backup singer in the band. She was really good. She fantastic voice, amazing voice, very naturally talented. She could just sing great. Got married, got pregnant, and was going to have a baby. And we got to a point where we were doing some fly gigs in this band, and she couldn't fly. She couldn't do the gig. So we got a sub. We get the sub comes in and does a show. Show is great. Sub pulls it off swimmingly. Now, the sub was just as good a singer, and she was a trained singer. She was like an operatic trained singer, had a degree in music. She knew music. It was really easy to communicate with the singer because there was percussion involved, and I could say to her, play 16th notes on the tambourine. She knew what that meant. Play the upbeat on the cowbell, play the 8th note. She knew what that meant, and I could communicate with her. Well, we get done with those shows. The original singer has her baby. The band leader decides that he wants 2 singers now. So the 2 singers come in. They work really well together. And the one singer that was a really naturally gifted singer, she was really good, but she didn't have the best ear. So a lot of times she would sing here, her part was here, but she would go high. Well, the trained singer would, she would take whichever one the other girl didn't sing at the moment. She's very good. The trained singer leaves. We bring in another new singer. Now, these 2 girls don't mesh together at all. And both of them were good singers, but the one girl took upon herself, because the one that was the original singer that had taken a leave of absence to have the baby. Well, I'll train the new girl. Again, she's an incredibly talented singer. She could sing very well, but she couldn't train the other girl. And they fought and they fought and they fought. So, fought musically. They didn't fight like this. They just couldn't get it together. So we go in the studio one day, and the band leader records them. And he says, okay, do me a favor. Do that again, and I want to get another take on it. And they couldn't do it. And so he did it to show them, look, this is what you're doing, and this is what we are sounding like. And it was a big cry fest and a big blah, 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 blah. And this went on forever. And the leader just wouldn't say, hey, look, you need to get these parts right, or you need to do this, or it was horrible. It was horrible. And that, for me, along with a whole bunch of other stuff that was going on with the group, if I ever found myself in a situation like that again, where it was just this huge musical tension, and there was always a little group over here that was causing all these problems. Oh, dude, I'm out. I'm gone. I've got way too many other things that I can do than to deal with that. So
life is too short for that.
Yeah, life is way too short for that. Yeah. And especially when everybody else in the band is doing their best, their absolute best to do their parts, and you got a little group over here of people that are just causing problems and blaming it's kind of like the guitar player saying a minute ago, blaming they can't play well on their guitar tone. Of course, these 2 singers are blaming the rest of the band for their problems rather than just learning their parts, and making life hell for everybody. And so, yeah, if I was ever caught in a situation like that ever again, I would never be unprofessional enough to walk off a gig. It will never happen. If I'm in the middle of a gig or I'm in the middle of a tour, I will finish. I will do my job, and I will represent my playing the best that I possibly can for the band. But at that point, there's a lot of bands out there. I turned down a lot of gigs. I can get work. I'm not worried about that. I would walk away from a situation like that easily. Yeah. And easily. Again, and it does come back to leadership is everything for me. Leadership is everything.
Chip, what about you?
What it would take for me to leave a band
Yeah. Or what has it taken for you to leave in the past? Either way.
I was in a band, a reggae band for a while. And when I got in, I learned all the music that I was supposed to learn, and I was playing it, and the bass player had a problem with me. There would be people that would come up to the side of the stage and say, give the drummer a drum solo and take pictures of me. And it was like a big deal. And he would the rest of the gig would be hell, because he would just look at me with that stink eye and shake his head and telegraph all this unhappiness about my parts. And in between songs, he'd look over and he'd be like, have you even ever heard that song? And things like that. Wow. And after a while, it just got to a point where no matter what I did seemed to placate him. No matter what I did could make him happy. And finally, I just said, that's it. I can't work with you guys. And I walked. And, it was just, that's what it took for me is a situation where I was just utterly unhappy with the whole thing. There's no way to, it's hard enough to play in a band and make the little money that we did.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's hard enough to keep that going when you're in a good situation with friends that you like playing with. That's hard enough.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate, Chip.
Yeah. It is. But good for you for standing up for yourself and self-respect, man. Get out of that situation.
It sounds to me like you were in a situation where you were outshining somebody, or not even trying to outshine. You were just doing your thing, and maybe they were intimidated or jealous of that. And that's not cool, dude. You're bringing your best. Why should you dumb yourself down to their level?
Well,
that's terrible.
That's like a benchmark with bands that I play with, that the singers with the most confidence in their ability are the ones that turn it over and give the drummer solos.
Well, I think that's true in general. I think that's true in general. Like the more confident the band members you play with, the less. I don't know if this is true or not. Maybe it's true. I think it's true. The less drama there is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It seems to me like
their abilities, they're not as threatened as normally.
Yeah, for whatever reason, whether it's by you or other scenarios. But like, I was just thinking about cataloging all the bands I've quit in my life.
And you're in a dictionary.
We could do a whole episode on just this.
Yeah, right. Hear ye.
Yeah. No, it's only a handful, but I was thinking about, like, I was just kind of cataloging them in my head, thinking were there any similarities in the situations? And one of the interesting similarities is that in all those bands that I ended up quitting, none of them were working a ton. Like they were, they had gigs like once a month at the most, and there was a lot of investment and rehearsal and not a lot of payoff.
Yeah.
And there, for whatever reason, there ended up being lots of drama about it. And the bands that I've worked with that have been successful and worked a ton, like things have been more copacetic. I don't know if that's universally true or not, but I had a gig one time. I played. This is a band that the first band I played in when I moved out here to California. Second band I played in was called Hot Links. It was a band for a New Orleans R&B band, and the guy who ran the band was a really terrific musician. He just passed away a couple of months ago.
I'm sorry.
A scholar of New Orleans music, and I learned a ton from playing in the band. But man, he had substance problems and he had personal communication issues, and there was a gig that we would rehearse once a week for like a couple of years running. And I look back one year, I was like, wow, we played 7 gigs last year. And we're rehearsing once a week. That's 52 rehearsals for 7 gigs. Like that's insane.
That's not really cool.
It's crazy.
Not hip. Yeah.
And then there was one time where I was at my friend's wedding, and I had to leave the wedding early to make this gig, which is kind of a bigger gig. And I get there and the gig had been canceled. And he had never told me that it was canceled. I was like, that's it. I'm done.
Yeah.
I've got, stories like that where it's just people behaving badly,
Yeah.
That ends up being sort of the straw that breaks the camel's back. And in retrospect, it's always like, man, the writing was on the wall. I knew it was coming. I wasn't happy. And then there was this thing that happened that made it to the point where it's untenable for me.
Yes.
The straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah. One of the things that I think I want to echo what you said, Jeremy and Chip, when you work with somebody that is a great musician. It's a really good player. They're going to champion you, and they're going to champion what you do because they're secure with themselves. I remember, matter of fact, Chip, you were involved in this when we played, when I invited you over to play that NAMM Jam that one year. Well, you did 2 years. Okay. Well, one year I had a few drummers that came. One year you were the only one that came because everybody else was booked around the NAMM show. But one year I had a lot of drummers get up and play. Man, we had a blast. It was so awesome. And one of the drummers that got up and played was a guy that I knew growing up that was in town for the NAMM show. And he goes, man, it takes a lot of nerve to invite a bunch of great drummers to get up there and play your kit and play with the band and just play so good. I mean, it's a room of friggin' great drummers. And I'm like, why wouldn't I want that? I want to be around great drummers, I mean, why wouldn't you want that? And I thought about that after the gig, and I was like, maybe this particular drummer was a little bit intimidated or not real secure with their playing. You know what I mean? And I think that carry that into the band leader situation, like you were saying, Jeremy. You're secure with the players in your band. You're happy with the players in your band, so you spotlight them. You don't detract from them. You don't put them through what Chip had to go through. Do you even know these songs? That sucks.
Right. I mean, God, I was thinking about what you just said, Chip, about that bass player, what he was saying to you. Like, God, what an asshole. I mean, like,
I know, seriously, man.
I never imagine saying anything like that to anybody.
He was completely insecure with his own situation.
I know. I think when I hear stuff like that, it makes me think of Dom Famularo, and Dom's whole thing is in positivity and encouragement.
Yeah.
That's the same philosophy we preach at Bandworks to our teachers for the kids. It's like, the words of encouragement and the words of support are very, very powerful.
Yep.
And the words of discouragement and tearing people down, also very, very powerful.
Very powerful.
That's true.
Right. And your words, can really have an impact. And if there's something that's not happening, you got to be thoughtful about how you use your words to get people to behave differently if you want them their behavior to change, whether it's showing up late to the gig or not having their gear together or not being prepared, not knowing the parts, etc. And then you can just say, what, this isn't working for me when this happens.
Right.
Because I don't want to be around, like, think about Rick Stojak, Bart refers to him as a positive energy hand grenade. And, I would love to be in the band with Rick because Rick is so and encouraging. He's going to lift everybody up.
Thanks.
To be positive and affirming and, great like that. And I want to be in the Rick Stojak band where there's like 5 Rick Stojaks in the band.
Right, man.
I have totally thing, man. Thanks, guys. Oh, that's the sweetest thing.
Life's too short.
Life's too short, man.
Absolutely. I know when you're an amateur and it's maybe your first band, or it's not easy. Like for us, we don't have time for that, man. Life's too short. We got tons of bands we can play in. We don't worry about that, right? That's the luxury of being an accomplished player and having a reputation and being on the scene for years in our respective areas. But when you're an amateur and it's your second band or your third band, it's hard for you to find a band. And the audition, you don't get the gig sometimes. And, you've got a lot to invest. Like, oh, man, I really thought this was the one. I love the music and we had so much good stuff going. But then the stuff comes up. But you know what? You will find another situation.
You will. And if you're, you will find it. You just have to go until you do find it.
You're too good as a player and you're too good as a person to allow yourself to be in a relationship that is not working for you.
That is it. Here to that.
You're right.
To that.
Totally.
To that.
Totally.
Yep.
And
that's right. If a person is mean to me more than once,
right,
I'll give them one break. Maybe they had a bad day, and I'll try to have a dialogue with them. But if you're mean or rude to me more than once, after the booked gigs are done, I'm out.
Yep.
I'm done. And it's only happened a couple of times, and there was a pattern to it. The bands always were bands that had trouble with drummers. So that was the early red flag. So to me, I don't care how talented you are. I don't care how good your vocals are. I don't care how many autographs you sign.
Right.
If you are not cool to your people, you're unprofessional, and I can't waste my time.
Yep.
And I'll gladly refer you another drummer, but I'll give them the heads up about what's involved, because maybe their personality could match. And then the other thing is, if there's guns and alcohol showing up, I'm out.
Guns and alcohol.
What about Rick? What about just guns?
What about let's say at the next deck
I'm okay
day,
with that,
I bring an Uzi. What if I bring an Uzi to the next deck day, but no beer?
You know what? Honestly, I'm not even comfortable having this conversation.
People
get shot up all over the fucking place, and our whole country coming to a crazy
You're right.
place.
I know.
It's not funny if you're a Michigan State family who just lost your kid yesterday.
Yeah, you're right. I apologize for that. You're right. I was trying to be silly, but you're right.
I was too, and I caught myself.
We have to have a bit of levity in this world, or we're all going to go crazy.
That's true. That's true.
So,
and Rick, I want to just say this one last thing because of what you said. I really think you nailed it. My father owned a construction business when I was a kid growing up, and he always said the best way to have success, he goes, making $1 million is easy. Be the first one there and the last one to leave, right? He always said that to me. But the other thing that I consistently watch my dad do, and is he treated his employees, his carpenters, his laborers, all of his people very well. He gave them great Christmas bonuses. He told them they're doing a good job. When they weren't doing a good job, you knew about it, but he treated them very well. I also remember one particular job. A roof came off this building, and there's my dad up there in the middle of wintertime in his dress clothes, helping his carpenters put, visqueen over these people's house because the roof had blown off in the middle of wintertime. He wasn't afraid to get his hands dirty. And I think that work ethic can be carried into a musical environment, and I think that's what we've all done. I mean, Rick, look at your studio there. The work ethic that goes into that. All of us are playing our work ethic. All that stuff is so very, very, very important to all of us. And if you're in a band and it's not working out for you, and you have some people that are not cool to you, hey man, exactly what Jeremy and Rick and Chip, all of us have said, life's too short, move on, go do something else.
Yeah, that's right, Bart. Yeah. There's a million bands who need a good drummer.
Yep. Excellent.
Good stuff.
Yeah. Right, well, I hope this show didn't come across as being negative. I think we were just, it's one of those things where we all decided we wanted to talk about, difficult band members and their conversations to have and their stories to be told. And we're trying to teach you guys what to watch out for, what to look out for, and how to deal with it. Nobody was thrown under the bus here. Nobody knows anybody's names. We're just trying to, hey, I've been there, done that, bought the t-shirt, and all of these guys have too. There's a lot of great drummers here, so that's what we're trying to do.
Hey, buy some.
Look at that.
Speaking of buying the t-shirt,
to the merch shop in the comments.
Yeah.
And there's Bart. What about our Patreon page?
Our Patreon page, go to Drummers Education Connection Patreon. If you want to support us and help us keep the lights on, you can do that. You can do that there, and tune in every week and just help support the show and talk about Drummers Education Connection to your students, to your drummer friends, and buy a cup. Look at that. Rick Stojak has a cup, and the lettering matches his really cool shirt and a really cool lights on his drum set.
If you get a deck mug, it'll help you with your groove.
It will. Yeah. If you know what? If you have one of those, you'll never need a metronome.
Yeah.
Ever again. Yeah. And your coffee tastes better. What kind of coffee do you drink, Rick?
The Grizzly Claw. I was eating the 3-peckered Billy Goat. But now we're on the Grizzly Claw.
3-peckered
454. Some serious coffees my wife gets.
Right on.
Well,
that's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, everybody, we've taken up about enough time here. You guys have a great week. We will see you. We're not on next week, right? We're off next week.
Right.
We will not be here next week. I'm going to be on tour, and everybody's doing their things. The week after that, we'll be back. And what are we going to be talking about that week? Do we know?
We have a lot of student band questions.
Okay.
There was one, how to do an audition.
Okay, we can talk about that.
How to audition a drummer.
A drummer from the other side. Yeah.
Yeah, complete with band. With also, there's a lot of student questions that I'd love to throw out and get your guys' thoughts on.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll do that. Well, you guys have a
good show.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in. Have a great week, everybody. We'll see you next 2 weeks on the deck.
Happy Valentine's.
I put my drumsticks down. I don't know where my Happy Valentine's.